Okay, I think it is recording. Perfect. Yeah, so I'm Michael. I'm from GoRoadie. Our mission at GoRoadie is to help to improve the quality of life for driving instructors. And that's what we do every day, day in, day out. And that's what our focus is. Right now, we're looking at building new apps for instructors. If anyone's interested in helping us out, be a beta tester, you can check out at GoRoadie.com/pro. Today we're joined with the legend that is Graham Hooper from Tri-Coalition Partnerships and Bridget Johns from Driving Schools Association of the Americas, Executive Vice President, I believe. And so we're going to talk about the differences between an ADI or a driving instructor in the US and in the UK, and how learners learn to drive over there compared to here, and all sorts of things from CPD and driving schools and how they're managed differently from here. It's really interesting. So I guess we'll get started. And Bridget, I was wondering, as a first question, would you be able to just kind of describe to us, like, I'm a 17-year-old and I want to get my driver's license in Seattle, because of course it's different state by state. Like, how do I go about that? How do I find my driving instructor or driving school and then get my license?
So you're right, every state is different. For most states, any driver or person under the age of 18 would be required to take a driver education course through an official school. And so they would just find a school, and most people in my area find schools online with web presence. This is like the home of Microsoft, and got a lot of Google and Amazon techs here. And so anyway, like, we're very technology based. And so any form of advertising outside of basically Google or internet isn't really going to work. So we put a lot of money into websites and trying to capture web traffic. But anyway, so you would find a driving school, and then you would start a course with a driving school, a course for a teenager, basically somebody who's 15, 16, or 17. Yep. Within the state of Washington includes 30 hours of classroom and 6 hours of behind the wheel driving. And then those hours are supplemented by driving with their parents.
So how many hours do you think they do with their parents?
So state law requires they have at least 50.
Okay.
If you're in the Johns household, you have over 100.
Excellent. And that's obviously quite different from here, because we have Graham, we have what is it, 20, about 47 hours, is it?
Well, yeah, well, that's the guide. It could be anything, but it was quite interesting that how do you find a driving instructor in the UK? Actually, after the launch of the DVSA website yesterday, is probably quite a toxic question, Michael, because our Driver Vehicle and Standards Agency launched a website about people learning to drive in the UK.
Yes.
And I'm going to be cynical here, but I believe the lady said it should be on recommendation. Someone should be reliable and punctual, and the car should suit the learner. So I can see already, I can imagine your ADIs who are attending this all now jumping up and going, what a load of, it's really good. Yeah, you can make your own decisions about it, but Michael, it's quite an interesting question at this moment of time. I'm sure Terry, one of the people attending, Terry, is having a blue fit right now, because I know he was up in arms about it, amongst other things. So recommendation, I think, generally speaking, and a web, people go on Google. That would be the main way. Facebook works a lot over here as well. So that would be the main ways that people find a driving instructor. People then pick up the phone, text, and most driving instructors say they're busy now.
Yes, they do. Yeah, so we'll be busy for the next year, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Compared to so you've got the number of hours. And what's the like? Obviously, Graham, do you want to talk about a bit about the UK theory, and then we can talk about how that compares to the US?
Okay, yeah, well, interesting. Generally speaking, and I know some driving instructors will offer theory test training, but generally speaking, the young new driver or new learner downloads an app and does their theory on an app on the phone, and then goes to a theory test centre and takes an exam, which is multiple choice, and a series of hazard perception clips where they have to click on the hazard or the dynamic hazard, shall we say. And if they score a certain mark on both, then they will pass. And if they have to pass both at the same time, there is very little theory test training in the UK directly from people like myself to learners. There is no interest, really. Whereas I know that's a completely different ball game, Bridget, I believe, in your neck of the woods.
Yeah. A question on like the video clips, like you just click on here's a hazard, there's a hazard, or what you're looking out for?
Yeah, it will be a video clip, yeah, and there will be a dynamic hazard. So, for example, there'll be a few parked cars and maybe a junction, and then a cyclist comes down the road towards you who's wandering into your path, and you're supposed to click when you see the cyclist, and that tells the software that you've spotted the cyclist.
Okay.
So, and that's the dynamic hazard.
Okay. Yeah. So we have our teenagers are required to take theory classes in Washington State, but adults are not. So as soon as you're 18, like that requirement goes away. There are a handful of states that require adults or novice drivers to take some theory, and it may be like 6 or 8 hours compared to 30 for a teenager. So if there's a requirement, it's significantly less than a teenager. But if you're an adult, then you would just download an app, study it. There's a driver guide that every state basically has a driver guide that's a little booklet that has all the traffic laws in it. And so you would read that. Maybe it'd take you an hour and a half to read. And if you understand what it's saying, then you can take a test and pass. If you're a good test taker, you can take a test and pass.
Is it compulsory for the teenagers to take theory training?
In most states, yes.
Okay. So 15, 16 and 17-year-olds, it's compulsory to take theory training.
In most states, yes.
Okay, in most states. So let's talk about your state for the moment, because that would then we'll keep it. How much?
I know my state.
Yeah, well, what is it? Washington State, is it?
Yeah, Washington State, Seattle area.
Yeah, Seattle area. How much do you charge for that theory test training for one individual, 30 hours?
So it depends on like the location. Basically, our downtown Seattle locations or in high urban areas, they're a little bit more expensive than the ones that are further out. But the price range is between $500 and $650.
Okay. And how many people are either in the classroom or on a webinar?
So currently right now, we are not in the classroom, but when we do have classrooms, we have anywhere between sometimes 5 or 10 students, and these are like winter type classes. All the way in the summer, we go up to about 30. It's like a typical classroom. With the webinars, we have all of our locations. We have 15 locations for our school, and we have all of our locations funneled into one Zoom class. So we start a new class every 1 to 2 weeks, and we might have 100 people in them. Sometime in the thick of summer, maybe 200. And those, the classroom teachers on our Zoom sessions, we have one teacher teaching the classroom and a second teacher answering all of the questions in the Q&A, monitoring the chat, making sure that the class is focused. And quite frankly, most of those students have no idea how many kids are in, because it's in a format like this, where everybody here participating with us thinks that they're there. They know the 3 of us are there. And then they see 3 or 4 other people, 5 other people commenting. So they might think they have the illusion of maybe there's 10 people there. Okay. And so most of them just have no idea. they don't get the feel that it's a large class. They get the feel that it's fairly personalized.
Okay, I just want to upset the driving instructors on here. Do the maths. 100 people on a webinar times $600. Yeah, over 30 hours. 2 people presenting. I just think we're just emigrating.
But don't do that math.
Yeah. We're on our way.
Because
Okay.
that math includes behind the wheel lessons.
Okay.
So that's not totally accurate math.
Okay.
There's also the fact that with about a 30-day notice, we have to finish up any Zoom classes that we're doing and go back to the classroom. So it is totally, within the realm of possibility that 30 days from now, we'll have to go back to a physical classroom. And I know that transition is going to be a nightmare for us, just because we have people from 15 locations in all of the classes anyway, we're also required to hold classroom space. So we still have, the rent hasn't changed. The insurance hasn't changed. Like, the only thing that has changed is that instructor and the location, and then the technology piece. And then what'd you say, Michael, you pay $40 a month for your Zoom webinar, but I think we pay about $600.
Yeah, it'll be with bigger sizes. They like to.
We have multiple classes going on. So anyway, there's not like that is such a huge expense for a large class. However, it's not as bread and butter as you might think.
Okay.
But there's also a question in the Q&A from Gavin, who asked, are instructors in the U.S. employed or self-employed? Yep. They are employed. That by and large, we don't have a lot of independent contractors. Most states have decided, nope, that's not it. Like, if you work for a company, if the company gives you students, if the company is paying for the car, if the company is paying for the insurance, like you can't do, in many places, you cannot be an independent contractor.
Right.
You must be connected with a school.
So yeah, because here in the UK, it's like you get, say, Russell if he's an independent instructor, he'll show up to someone's house, sit outside their house, text, I'm outside, and they manage the entire business themselves. That's the marketing, their finances, their pupil management, everything. They have to manage everything, every single aspect of that business or car, and they're responsible for everything. Whereas obviously, so in the US, that doesn't really happen. Well, in Washington, I guess we should say.
In Washington, it does not happen. I think in most states, it does not happen. Right. But we hired a couple of years ago a teacher from maybe either Ontario or Quebec, I can't remember. Yep. But he came to us as an independent contractor. He did the training required. We had a little bit different training, so he had to do some additional training to transfer his license from Canada to Washington. And so, but when we were talking like wage, like what he makes, he's like, well, that's not very much. And then we're like, well, yeah, but you don't use your car. Like, it's our car, our gas, our insurance, our schedulers, our receptionist is going to talk to the students. We do all the marketing, we pull in all of the students, and then you show up and here's your schedule for the day, and you're going to work your schedule for the day. And it's quite a bit simpler. And so the pay is less, but you also have quite a bit less responsibility.
Yeah. So is Canada then, is Canada quite similar to the UK then, from what you gather?
From what I gathered, at least with this guy, it was. However, I am also connected with, through the Driving School Association of Americas, I'm connected with several Canadian business owners, and they have their own schools and they have their own instructors, and they operate like we do.
Right, interesting. That's really
I don't know if that was just a provincial something in Canada, or if that was just one specific school, or I don't totally fully understand it. I just know that they have independent contractors.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, which is in the complete opposite to us. I mean,
yeah,
there may be a few contracted driving instructors in the UK on employment. They will be very few. Vast majority are self-employed, They may belong to a driving school, and they will pay the driving school to belong to that on some sort of franchise agreement. And that varies from, say, being given a car. Some driving instructors in the UK will supply their own car and still pay a fee to the driving school for pupil supply, and may use a headboard on top of their car to advertise themselves or that driving school. So it's really the complete opposite.
Right.
You know, so I tell you what I was interested in. So if I wanted to become a driving instructor in the US, yeah, and just say I am a US citizen to make life easier, how do I become a driving instructor?
Well, Graham, we don't even ask if you're a citizen.
Oh, okay, right.
Wait, hold on.
Fine.
Once we hire you, we do fill out paperwork. We need to ensure that you have either citizenship or a proper work permit. Okay. So, but in terms of training, like there's no citizenship requirement. However, there are requirements in the state of Washington. You need to be a minimum age of 21 and have had a driver's license for at least 5 years. You need to have a clean driving record. No more than 1 ticket or citation within a 12-month period, and no more than 2 within a 24-month period. So anyway, it's that right there rules out most people.
Okay, really?
So what happens if you are an instructor and you get a ticket and citation? Like, do you lose your job, or like what happens then?
So you fight it. You fight the tickets.
Okay. Excellent.
So I got a ticket probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I live up a hill, and you have to go down. Probably takes about a mile and a half to get down the hill, and you really have to like have your foot on the brake the entire time if you're going to stay within the posted speed limit, which is 25 miles an hour, which is just not very fast. So anyway, normally I go a bit faster than that because I'll hit the brakes at good places to do that, but I'm not going to like constantly be on the brakes. So anyway, at the bottom of the hill one morning, there was a police officer who he was at a stop sign. He wasn't even parked. And he gets me coming down this hill, and anyway, I'm like, I can't have a ticket. I'm a driving school instructor. I'm a driving school owner. Like, if I get a ticket, okay, that's fine. That's 1 in 12 months. I'm fine, right? But what if I get another one? And then I'm not going to have the wiggle room. And so I like to feel a little bit more comfortable. So instead of saying I was guilty, I went to court and said, well, like, when was the radar calibrated and whatever. And they don't actually care if they give me a ticket or not. So they ended up trading in my ticket for a deferral. And so they deferred my ticket, meaning that I couldn't have any other violations within the 7 years. Otherwise, this other one would come onto my record. I haven't had anything in that time period, so I'm fine. But what it does is it cleans up my record. So then I still have my one chance to get another ticket, and I'm still going to be okay. But for most of our, if you get a ticket in Washington State, there are 3 things you could do. You could say, I did it, here's my money. You can say, I did it, but there were mitigating circumstances, or you could say, I didn't do it. And basically, in terms of being a driving instructor and keeping your clean record, you need to keep your record clean. And we recommend all of our instructors, if they get a ticket, to fight it. But okay, so Graham, your question was, how do you become a driving instructor?
Yeah, not getting nicked for speeding. That's one. Yeah. Okay.
So 5 years driving experience is the minimum. Over 21 and clean driving record. And also you're going to go through a background check, so you can't have any other anything else going on that would interfere that way in terms of background check type stuff. And then you need to do a training program.
Okay.
And you can do a training program if you are, like for us, we train our own people so that we do it in-house. And if you wanted to, let's say there are two different types of driving instructors. One is regulated under the superintendent of public schools. And so certified teachers who teach in the public schools, they can go to certain colleges. There's one college within Washington State where they can go and they can get an endorsement on their teaching certificate for traffic safety education. So that's one route that some choose to do. And then another route is you don't have to be a certified teacher, but you can still go to a university and take that training. The state of Washington has an agreement with the state of Oregon, where the state of Oregon has a specialized funding that goes into training traffic safety instructors and all sorts of traffic safety education. And so somebody can go down from Washington, and depending on where you are in Washington, from Seattle to Portland, Oregon, it's about a 3.5, 4-hour drive, depending on the day and traffic. And so you could go from Washington to Oregon and take their course. And so that's the three ways in Washington. You can either go through a college or university, go through a specific driving school, or take an Oregon program.
So what does the course entail? How many sort of hours training or days training would it take?
So I know the Oregon program is 120 hours. Okay. For a driving school to do the training, it's a minimum of 100 hours. Okay. And I think the college or university is, I don't know exactly, but like there's usually like a summer program where you go a specific number of hours per day and days per week. And I think there are like 6 classes that may be like 3 credit classes. And anyway.
All right. Let's get the bottom line. The question that everyone asks everyone, how much is that going to cost me? So I looked up Oregon's yesterday, and it was about $1,700. And so that does not include any travel or a hotel or whatever when you're staying there. They do their program on weekends or sometimes midweek. So you might have 1 to 2 nights of a hotel and those travel expenses added to each of those training days. For our company, we don't charge for the training. We actually will give you a bonus upon completion of the training. If you go to work for another driving school, or if you open your own school, then we're going to charge you $5,000 for the training.
Yep.
We've only collected that once, but we have collected it.
I mean, I think.
But we don't want to train you unless we want to hire you. Yeah. So we will only train those who we want to hire.
Lynn from Glasgow, she couldn't be here, but she wanted to know. She's got family in America. She's been in ADI for years, and she is. If she were to move over to the US and to become a driving instructor, if she was getting a permit to work and all that, would she need to do that college? Would she need to go and get that certificate? If she even though she's been doing it in the UK, what do you think?
Right. So it would depend on the state. Yep. So I know for the state of Washington, what we had to do with this Canadian instructor was go back to the original training. What was the original training like? And so I think out of the 100 hours of training, Washington gave him credit for 60 hours. And so we needed, as a driving school, we gave him an additional 40 hours of training to bring him to that Washington standard. And then he was required to take the state test. There's an instructor knowledge test and an instructor driving test. Okay. So depending on the state that she would be moving to, it would depend. We've had Washington instructors. I know we had one that moved to Texas, and I hooked him up with one of my driving school friends in Houston, and he had to jump through some hoops for Texas to be able to transfer his license. He did not have to start all over again, I don't believe. I believe they gave him credit for something, but usually there's additional things for each state that you'd have to do to get your license. So yeah, and unfortunately it is very state specific.
What sort of things would I be learning? I know this is sort of a bit of a dumb question, but what sort of things would I be learning if I was training to become a driving instructor in Washington State? What would be the curriculum type stuff?
So we have
question.
your driving certification includes both classroom and behind the wheel teaching.
Okay.
So you're going to learn things like how to teach in a classroom, how to just various teaching techniques, learning about various learning styles and teaching styles and how to alter things. You're going to learn about lesson plans and how to stand, how to speak, how to cut out the ums, how to not stand in front of a projector, that type of thing, like just the theory of classroom. You also learn the theory of in-car teaching, and then relating those to each other. And then there's a practicum where there's 20 of the 100 hours is student teaching, where you're teaching. Sometimes you can teach some of your trainees. Like I'll have trainees together and they'll teach each other how to parallel park. And then once they get into a real car, they have a mentor instructor in the back seat. They're sitting in the front seat. They're teaching a real student how to do a parallel park. They're not as dumb in that situation if they've already practiced it with me in the training car. Okay. So there's a good chunk of teaching actual students before licensure.
Okay. Does the driving instructor deliver some sort of syllabus, or does he make it up as he goes along depending on the client?
So it depends. So with our teenagers, we have a very structured curriculum where on lesson 1, this is what we do. And then on lesson 2, if you've practiced lesson 1, then you're going to be ready to move from that level 1 up to the second level. If you've not practiced, we're going to repeat all or a portion of the first level before going to the second level. So I would guesstimate that maybe 80% of our teenage students stay on track between lessons. They get enough practice with their parents that every time they come back, they're ready to learn something new. And so when we're working with an instructor trainee, like that trainee is learning specific lessons. Here's what we do for a level 1. Here's what we do for a level 2. Here's what we do for a level 3. Keeping in mind that maybe we do parking early. And so on the second lesson, but if you don't trust a student next to another car, well, you're not going to do parallel parking, but you might do hill parking. And we do have a back around a quarter maneuver that simulates backing out of a driveway. So we can do that with a student that's not super close to other cars. But if maybe it's not until the third lesson that we'll put you next to another car, depending on your car control skills. Like we don't want to,
Does your instructor have dual controls, or as in, can they control anything from their instructor seat, or are they just?
So we all have a hand on the wheel, right? If we want.
Yeah.
But we also have dual brakes. All of the driving instruction cars in the state of Washington are required to have dual brakes. And then some schools I know have cars with a dual accelerator as well, mm-hmm. which in some situations could have been nice, but
yeah, we're not allowed dual accelerators. We're not allowed dual accelerators. We have.
Oh, really?
We have a clutch because a lot of ours are still manual,
right.
Stick shift, and we have a brake, and that's in all driving instructor cars. We can't get insurance without them.
Right. Yeah. So we have our school has one manual transmission vehicle. The rest are automatic. I would guesstimate 95% of cars sold in the United States are automatic. So we're working with automatic transmissions and not so many manuals, but we do have one.
Okay. So if I was a learner and I'm 15, 16, 17, I've done me 30 hours, I then have 6 hours practical training with you?
We like to intermix it. So you go to class for a week, take a driving lesson. Go to class for another week, take another driving lesson. That's simplistic.
So how old are they having these driving lessons?
Usually once a week.
Yeah, but how old can they have a driving lesson on road at 15? Or is it
off?
Yeah. So they can have a driving lesson on road at 15.
Yeah, all of the lessons that we do are on public roads.
Okay. and at 15, 16 and 17,
Yep.
and they've had, in the package, they get 6 hours. Yeah, is that right? 6 hours practical. Then what happens? So they take a test?
They take a test at the end. Maybe 80% pass. And
okay. And this is a driving test to get a driving license. I mean, I know this might sound like...
it's to pass driver's ed. Like you have to pass the course. And then once you've passed the course, then the state testing and state licensing is different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they pass the course. So then how many hours? So they have to take a test to pass the course, and they have about 6 hours practical training on that course to pass it. And then they have to take a state test after that.
They can't, nobody's going to pass that test with 6 hours. Okay. They have to practice with their parents.
Because I'm thinking of the money and like, what's the quickest number of hours I can get through? How many hours would I take?
So let me add some complication. Many states have what they call graduated licensing.
Okay, yeah.
Which means that to get a license under the age of 18, they're going to jump through some extra hoops. So in the state of Washington, our graduated licensing states that you need to hold a learner's permit for 6 months.
Okay.
And so there's no way under 18 that you're going to have less than 6 months experience. Okay. You'll have your traffic safety course, and then you'll have 50 hours additional with your parents. And after 6 months, then you would be eligible for a license if you've completed those things. David, parent vehicles do not have dual controls. However, I have 2 sons that are licensed. My first son, I did every single one of his practice hours in a driving school vehicle. It was the winter season. I just took a car home and did everything in a driver's ed car. My second son, he turned 15 last March. He started a driver's ed class in person, and it went to online. And at the time, I could not use a company vehicle because our governor had just shut down everything, and I couldn't be seen to be like, I couldn't appear to be giving a lesson outside of, anyway, I don't want to get reported. I don't want my school to be shut down. So my second son, I did everything just like a regular parent in my own vehicle. Luckily, with my son's personalities, that worked. There's no way I would have survived the oldest one doing like that, but but number 2, we were good. So anyway, there's a huge chunk of time that's done with the parents that you just can't get a license just like that. When you do get a license, for the first 6 months of that license, you can have no tickets, no collisions. You cannot drive between 1 and 5 a.m. You cannot drive with friends in the car. You can only have immediate family members. So not even your cousin who's, living with you at the moment, like he wouldn't even count as an immediate family member. It has to be like blood relatives or adopted, like siblings, that type of a thing. Okay. So then in the second 6 months, the graduated license lasts for a year in Washington state. So first 6 months, heavily restricted. Second 6 months, you can have up to 3 friends in the car. You still cannot drive between 1 and 5 a.m. But basically you're like growing into the responsibilities of driving with this graduated licensing. So it's not a quick and easy thing. When it first came in, people were like, what? I'm just waiting till I'm 18. Our 18 and 19-year-old students in Washington state have more collisions than the 16 and 17-year-olds.
Okay. So
because they're avoiding the education, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because over here, it was considered, graduated driving licensing has been considered, and at the moment, it's not happening. And in a way, it's a long story. It's probably the right decision at this moment in time for us. But it was something that I was going to ask, and you've sort of answered it about what's the ratio of crash statistics for young people in Washington state? Is it good, bad, indifferent? What's it like?
So since graduated licensing came in, the rate of collisions has decreased. Okay. Huge decreases. Yeah, that it's working. That having having a mandatory practice time, having a mandatory, just the restrictions on that new license, it is quite literally saving lives. I don't know the statistics right off the bat. I just know that it's working.
Okay.
One of the questions David asked was, how do learners prove that they've done the required hours? Is there a timesheet or an online portal?
There are apps that you can track things on. Our driving school gives we have a student workbook, and in the back of the workbook, there's a page, just a grid pattern, like here's the date, time, number of hours practiced, here's what I was working on, parent initial. So you can keep track any way you want. At the end of the day, the state doesn't look at it. The parents sign an affidavit that it's been done.
Okay. All right. So how much?
Can you lie about it? Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
if just say I've behaved myself, how much professional tuition will I probably have before I take my Washington State test? Behind a wheel with a driving instructor, average. If I've been doing everything with my parents or along the way.
Really, you're just paying that $500 or $600.
Yeah. And how many hours is that?
So the behind the wheel would just be 6.
Be 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long is the driving test then? How long does it take to take a driving test in Washington State?
I believe the UK does well, where we do not.
Okay. Come on.
The driving test is 15 minutes. 15.
And in that 15 minutes, what specifically do they have to demonstrate?
It's quite frankly, it's embarrassing.
No, well, God, well, I've asked anyway.
Here's the minimum: 3 right turns, 3 left turns, 2 traffic lights, 2 stop signs, parallel park, a back around a corner, a lane change, a hill park. Something called the starting maneuver, which is just pulling over to the side of the road, re-entering traffic. You're just looking, to see if they can check over their shoulder. They have to go through an uncontrolled intersection and move their head, scan the intersection. So really, it's 15 minutes. It's kind of embarrassing how simple it is.
Because if anyone doesn't, in America, traffic lights, there is a lot of traffic lights. So
depending on where you are.
Yeah. But I would imagine if you're taking your driving test, there will be a lot of, they're not going to be, if it's 15 minutes, there's going to be a lot of traffic lights. Yeah?
No.
So how are they going to find 3 left turns, 3 right turns? Are they pre-planned routes?
Yes, everything's pre-planned. Everything's approved by the state. Okay. The state will drive the route. Make sure that it meets the minimum requirements. And then so in Washington State, driving instructors have the option or ability to do some extra training and become an examiner. And we do third-party testing for the state.
Okay.
So if you want to come to my driving school, you can get lessons, and then you can also do your licensing tests. Okay. So what's nice about that is that your driving instructor might also be your examiner. So if you have test anxiety and you already know your examiner, then already you're going to be like, okay, this is Bridget. I know her. Like, I don't need to feel anxious, like you would with a stranger. Yeah. So what was your question?
Well, I was just thinking, so I was going to ask, does the client, like the pupil, know the test routes before they take the test?
If they know the test route before the test, it is because somebody told them, like maybe a friend or somebody else. But we don't practice driving on the test routes. We cannot take you through the test route unless you're actually going on the test.
Okay.
And each one of our locations that does testing, there are at least 2 or 3 routes. So if you fail number 1, next time you're going to get number 2, and then next time number 3, and then if you fail again, okay, we'll be back to number 1. So in that regard, yeah, maybe you've seen it. But if you failed that many times, you got other problems.
Okay. Okay. And so I think someone just asked, what's the pass rate? I thought you mentioned it earlier, about 80% pass.
About 80% of our teenagers pass our course.
Okay.
On the first try without extra lessons.
Right.
And some sign up for extra lessons. So that's always an option to sign up for more lessons. We've had, if parents don't have the ability to practice with a student, then they sign up for more.
Okay.
And that ability, maybe we've had kids of doctors who are like, I don't have time to do this. And so maybe we give them 20, 30 hours of lessons because their parents aren't going to be practicing with them. We have some foreign students who come and are not allowed to practice with host parents. And so they have to do it with the driving school, in which case that negates any cost savings of doing it in their home country to us.
Yeah.
When you're paying for that many lessons. So anyway, it's, yeah, it varies.
Okay. So what's the pass rate for the state driving test thing?
Yeah.
Roughly.
So,
and is that different from the kind of school test?
Yeah.
So I know that like we have a login that goes into our state portal where we upload test scores to, and we upload certificates for passing a class and test scores. And so if any of our examiners, like they look for a range, and an examiner has to pass at least, let's say, between 68 and maybe like 92% or something. Like they have to fall between a range.
Yeah.
If they fall outside of the range, then there's an audit that takes place, and one of the our Department of Licensing master examiner people come out and they do a ride along and a check ride with that examiner and just make sure that they are administering the test properly. So I actually don't know the passage rate, but I would guesstimate it's probably in the 80%, 85%.
Right. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, because ours is still under 50%.
Yes, for like 40%.
Right.
Or something
Yeah.
like that.
No, we have an easier test. It's easier to pass. Yeah, a whole lot of things are easier. Yeah. And I don't want to tout this as being all that because I know that the US crash rates are double that of the UK. So know that you're doing something right.
Okay, that's good to know. So I'm a driving instructor now. Do I have to do any sort of continued professional development or any additional training courses? Now I'm qualified. I've been teaching a while. I'm doing okay.
So within the state of Washington, it's required that you have 8 hours of continuing education in between each renewal. And so currently our renewal process is every 2 years, we renew our licenses. So that's required. Other states have other requirements. I'm going to guesstimate maybe 25% of the states have some sort of a continuing ed requirement.
So that's 8 hours every 2 years. So basically, like
I think like Louisiana might be 4 hours every year. I think Texas is 8 hours every, or maybe 6 hours every year or two. I can't remember the exact amount.
So what do I have to do to get my CPD, my continued professional development certificate, so I can wave it at someone and say I've done my 8 hours?
So maybe there's a webinar, maybe there's a conference, whatever it is. Basically, you go and you do something and you'll get a certificate. You turn your certificate into the state to prove that you have, in fact, done your continuing ed.
That's brilliant. Okay. We don't have any, correct me if I'm wrong, Graham, I don't think we have any mandatory CPD.
We have no mandatory continued professional development. We do have continuing professional development written into the National Driver Rider Training Standards, which is in Unit 5 of Role 6 for driving instructors out there. And it says that we should all continue professional development, but there's no, it's a voluntary, so there's no actual requirement to do that, but it is part of our national standards. Okay.
So there's a question that Russell has. Let me read it really quick.
Okay.
Bridget will remember a state official from Oregon speaking at the DSAA annual conference a few years ago. And he told that they had mandated that all driving instructors in the state take additional training, which immediately resulted in a pass rate of student drivers rising by a few percentage points. He added that higher trained instructors produced better trained and safer new drivers. Right. And that it's accurate. We have probably, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, there was no continuing ed requirement for the state of Washington. And in terms of, my family owns our school, and so I've been working with it for many years. And the difference in instructor we had 15, 20 years ago to what we have now, we have much better trained instructors. And it used to just be like the old guys would be like, I don't need to learn anything. Like, I already know everything. I can teach everything. And just the attitude of like, they already know everything hindered them. But if you have a growth mindset, like there's always going to be more to learn, more to do, more to understand, and you've never arrived. If you think that you've arrived, that's a problem. If you think you've never, there's always more, then you're going to be continually growing, and your students are going to get better and better the more education that you have, that you're able to pass on. Okay,
Bridget, the check's in the post. Okay. Because that's our role. My company's role is to do continued professional development. You just sold it to me. Everyone on here, they're all enrolling now. Yeah. So thank you very much. That's brilliant. You couldn't have said it better. I love it. I love the requirement. Like it used to be like we would, with our instructors, we'd try and get them to company meetings and training things, but if they didn't do something, our only recourse would be to find a new instructor. It's not like, and we don't want to do that. It takes so long to train someone and so long to get somebody qualified and somebody who has the personality to be able to work with students, who has the patience and doesn't easily get upset or excited. It just takes so long to get the right person that it was really great to have the state backing us and the state saying this is required. And then people are like, okay, all right, I'll do it. I'll jump through the hoop. But jumping through that hoop was the best thing because it's a great hoop. I learned. Yeah. That growth mindset. I think it's. I think the thing that always stumps me is that driving instructors are teachers, coaches, mentors, trainers. That's what they do. They help somebody else learn the skill and develop their own mindset, that person's mindset behind the wheel. And then if you ask driving instructors to do it for themselves, they go, oh no. And I've always struggled with that concept that we're trainers. If we believe in education, because that's what we do, we educate people how to drive, surely we must believe in education for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
I think
don't get me on my soapbox. Sorry.
Probably like preaching to the choir. Everyone here is probably signed way up to that mantra. I think it's the people who don't show up to these sort of things, don't engage.
No, absolutely.
So
yeah, preaching to the converted.
Yeah, exactly. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Something that we spoke about previously, Bridget, was your ways for your school to attract pupils was the type of vehicles you guys teaching. What kind of cars do you offer lessons in? And is it bog standard cars or anything fancy? And are you seeing an additional question? Are you seeing a shift to electric out of interest?
So we have we've been through various phases. When Volkswagen came out with their updated Beetle, we had a couple of them. They were called the bubblegum cars. We had a red one and a yellow one. And kids would come because they wanted to drive those cars. Like, yeah. And parents were like, oh, this is so great. This is not the Beetle of the 70s. This is like new and improved. We had those cars for 10 years. And they were expensive to fix just because they're European. And anyway, we don't fix European cars very well over here, or very cheaply. So, but they were literally 10 years old and the kids thought they were new. We've gone through other phases where we've had PT Cruisers, just like, I don't know if you guys play the slug bug game. You see a beetle, then you hit somebody, say slug bug.
Yeah, I roughly idea. Yeah, you smashed it. Yeah, you smashed it.
An American game, you just slug somebody. Anyway, with the PT Cruisers, it was like a cruiser bruiser, and then you could hit somebody if you saw a PT Cruiser on the road. We've had Mustangs. Those were fun. I actually, can I share? I can share a screen. Let me.
Yeah. Cool.
I'll try not to kick you out of the room if I have to give you permission.
I do have a picture. Well, I'll find it in a minute. We have a line of Mustangs.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then probably about 10 years ago, like everything was about green driving. And so we had quite a few Honda Civic hybrids. Right now, in most of our locations, if you're going to take a driving lesson, you'll be in a Toyota Corolla, a Honda Civic, or a Mazda 3. And so anyway, those are our cars right now that we're gravitating toward. And we also have a Tesla. And so if you want to learn how to drive a Tesla or learn how to work your own vehicle, then you can take a lesson with us in ours. And you can drive a Tesla if you want. Usually, like the specialty lesson in a Tesla is going to be more expensive than the automatic. The stick shift lesson is going to be more expensive than the automatic. So anyway, you have options. There are different things you can do.
Michael, do you want to go to that question? I know Chris has had a question for some time.
Oh yeah, let me see.
And I know it's not been answered.
Yeah, so driving-based system, we use mirror signal maneuver. Yeah. What's?
I think what Chris is saying is that when he's taught people from the US, they don't bother using their mirrors. So they've been when he's taught people who've come from America who've had to take the UK driving test, they fail their driving test because they don't use their mirrors. Do you have a system in America like mirror signal maneuver?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What he's probably experiencing is somebody who was educated in a driving school and somebody who was not.
Right.
Okay. What's your system called in America?
There are many.
Okay.
Smog is a big one, which is like signal, mirror, over the shoulder, and go.
Okay.
In my school, we do signal 1, 2, 3. We've named our mirrors. So our rear view mirror is number 1, the side views are number 2, and the blind spot check is number 3. So we signal and then like do the whole routine.
Yep.
So yeah, we see really on our state test, there are probably 9 or 10 different areas where you can lose 4 points for not looking over your shoulder. And so it's a lot of people are concerned about parallel parking, like, oh, I can't parallel park. And that's worth 4 points. But when you have 9 or 10 areas where you can lose 4 points on vision, it's huge. Like vision is marked in so many areas. And so when we are working with younger drivers, especially younger drivers who don't have any habits, we try and build the vision first.
Okay.
And then the other skills follow.
Okay. So, look, I mean, I don't quite know how to phrase this, but we've moved away, or we're supposed to be moving away from what would be called operant conditioning, in that conditioning people to do things in a certain order, rather to moving towards more of a client-centered and coaching approach to training, where people take effective observation. It's always been effective observation, but the student works things out for themselves more rather than we tell them what to do. Would you say that it's still, is it instructor-led in the US? So the instructor tells the student what to do and the student does what the instructor says. Is that the way, or does the student learn for themselves to a degree?
So the advantage that you have is time, because I think your students are taking 30 lessons, let's say, right?
Easy, yeah.
You've got time. We don't have that time. That we have, just a few hours, handful of hours where we tell the students exactly what to do. Those who sign up for extra lessons, or adult students who are not required to take any lessons, but they do because they don't know how to drive and they don't have friends or family that can practice with them. So they come to us. Maybe they take 10, 12 lessons. Maybe they take 20 lessons. But depending on what their hand-eye coordination is like, what they can learn to pick up and whatever, on adults, we can go through things a lot slower, where teenagers were fairly regulated because a lot of the families don't want to put extra money into the education. No. Whereas adult is like, well, they actually want to learn how to drive and they're there for their own purposes, and teenagers are trying to jump through a hoop.
Yeah, it's interesting, really, isn't it, that parents don't want to pay very much for quality driving lessons, but the one thing that's going to probably kill their children or seriously injure their children.
Still, number one killer of teens.
Yeah. So that's very much the same battle that we're facing over here. But we've made good inroads over the last 10 years, but we've still got a long way to go, because it is a culture of, how quickly and how much.
Right.
Yeah. Which sounds very similar. Yeah. And it's interesting, still the biggest killer of young people worldwide is driving, and we want to get them through as quickly and probably unsafely as possible.
Right.
Yeah. Which doesn't make a lot of sense, really.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So I guess I know that we've hit the hour mark. I mean, is there any questions on your mind, Graham, or the audience? I guess.
No. I'm just reading Russell's question. I could go and play golf, fishing expeditions, social events, banquet, and much, much more.
Russell just made a comment about he's made his plans to come to Anaheim, California in October. Driving School Association of the Americas is holding our annual international conference there this year. So it's mid-October. If you want more information, I'll put the link in the chat.
Perfect.
Yeah, that will be brilliant. I'm not saying anything, Russell, but it's a good way of writing off your holiday against tax.
Russell comes to the U.S. every year for this, and he gets his U.S. holiday in, and he gets all the fun in. But the great thing about conferences is like meeting other business owners, figuring out like whatever question you have, there is somebody else who's already done it. And so when you can talk to other people how they've done things, then you can figure out how to best do your stuff. Anyway, so it's really a lot of fun. There's a big educational piece to it, and really like our goal, our company's goal. And I go every year. I'm in a family business, so I've got two brothers, and they come every year. And our goal is to bring home at least one thing that we can put into action within our business every year. And so really that's three things. The three of us are there. But so anyway, it's a lot of fun to do.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
I see another question here. What does America think of UK drivers? I think in general they're great. We teach some of them here. Those that come to work for Microsoft or Amazon or Google, they might take a lesson or two with us before a test. Really, the biggest thing is just driving on the other side of the road. So once you get down where to look, I think UK drivers are in general fantastically trained. And then do older drivers require retesting? And the short answer is no. The longer answer is if a doctor or a family member has recommended it, reported it, done something with that, then an older driver may need to do some testing. And if they cannot pass, then their license is revoked. We have something that our Department of Licensing will also do for older drivers called a drive test special. And that special is they will go to the applicant or older person's house. They will drive with that person within maybe a 1 to 2 mile radius around the house, so that basically that a driver can get a limited use license to only use close to home. So they can drive to the grocery store, they can drive to the doctor, they can drive to church, but they cannot drive on the freeway. They cannot go to another city. They cannot, expand that way, but they can have a limited use one. Those are not super common, but they do happen.
Okay, thank you.
That's really great. Yeah,
Okay.
that's really good. So much serious stuff I just didn't know at all. So it's brilliant.
Okay.
I do have another question actually. What's in your driving school? What's your use of technology like? This is obviously one for me because I'm. Yeah.
Well, Michael, we're more familiar with Zoom than you.
You are.
We've actually, with the DSAA organization, we've been using Zoom for years for our board meeting, conference calls every week, whatever. So last year when the initial lockdown happened, our school or our state, at least driving schools in our state, were locked down for 2 months. And then we were up and running. So we had some great periods of probably what you're experiencing now, backlogs. We've kind of evened those out a little bit, but we still have other backlogs. But in terms of technology, we use technology quite frequently. We have our scheduling system is all online.
Is that bespoke software for driving schools, or is that I'm doing a bit of user research? is that bespoke for driving schools? Is that just like business software in general?
Because our company has its own software, so you have to learn how to use our scheduling system.
Right, okay.
There are scheduling systems. There are multiple scheduling systems that various companies have put out specifically for driving schools. Those usually don't work for our school because we're a little bit larger, and so we have other specific needs that we need addressed within our own school. So yeah, we have our own.
That's cool.
We don't have a programmer per se. We do have a programmer, but not in-house. We just, when we need something, he will alter our system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Is there any other questions from the group, or is that pretty much done for the evening?
No, I don't think I've got. I've just to say, Bridget, thank you. I mean, I've really been interested, really enjoyed what you've had to say tonight. And Michael, thank you for putting this on. I mean, I've found it interesting. I hope the attendees have found it interesting. And, I'm looking forward to seeing it on YouTube so we can share it with, our database so people can see it even more. So, yeah, no, I think it's been a good evening. So
yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Oh no, honestly, that was absolutely brilliant. I'm so glad we got this arranged. I'm so glad we managed to get this sorted. So thank you very much. I was like, hopefully we can maybe do something else in this format, because it definitely works. And I want to do something with yourself, Bridget. Again, it'll be really good.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
I'm going to quickly demo a quick thing that we're working on at GoRoadie, and just to show you my questions. We are building GoRoadie Pro at the moment. It's a diary management app for driving instructors, and it's something that we're really, really excited about. We're at a very early stage, and if any ADIs are willing to help us shape this and shape the direction of it, that would be fantastic. We want to just listen to your opinions, listen to your thoughts on what we've got so far. And if you're interested in just getting a sneak peek and giving us your honest feedback on it, that'd be fantastic. It's GoRoadie.com/pro to have a look at what we're building. And yeah, I'd love to hear what people are thinking and work really closely with you as we develop it over the next month or two. So that's all I kind of want to share today. And yeah, this is a design that our designer did, Barry. He's like, oh, it looks pretty nice. So I'm pretty happy to share that today. This is the first time I'm actually really talking about it publicly. So yeah, that's that's pretty much all we got for today. So thank you very much for everyone showing up, and I'll be circulating this across the internet once I've got time to edit it down. But thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it. And
yeah, cheers. No, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yep.
Bridget, have a good day.
Yeah, enjoy your day, Bridget.
Lunchtime.
Lunchtime. I'm going to bed.
Thanks, everyone. I will all catch up really soon again. Thanks.
All right, cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.